minutes that Jean so graciously puts together. Any comments on the minutes from January 27th?
I'd like to move that we accept the minutes for January 27 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Minutes are approved. The next few things, some of them are sort of minor. If you remember, and it's in our current version, we added a paragraph talking about that the charter should be reviewed. And the question was, should that section that says that the charter there should be a charter committee consisting of 5 members appointed every 5th year. It should be reviewed and the select board to determine blah, blah, blah. Because it's the sort of select board's responsibility, the first question was, should it stay where it is or should it go in the select board list of duties? And when Nancy did her edit on the select board, she made a reference to it. Instead of putting that whole paragraph in the select board, it's a reference that say the select board's to provide for review of the charter, as it says in Article 1. So my question to you guys is, does that suit what you, does that take care of the need to make sure the select board know they're supposed to provide for a charter review and leave the specifics in Article 1 about the charter?
When I first looked at the, it looked funny where it was at the very beginning of the charter itself.
It does. I agree.
Yeah, I think it should go perhaps where she's saying, but be more explicit.
Just put the whole thing in.
Yes, exactly.
In this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think the language could be a little stronger.
On the
Shall
charter
provide
review
for the review of
language.
the charter. Yeah, I think it could be strong. If we think the charter is important, we should let them know that we think it's important, but stronger language. That seems very sort of milquetoast to me.
That charter review on page 1.
Yeah. Right.
What part would you like to change or add to?
On page 8.
Oh, you're looking at the wrong, different thing then.
Charter review.
Oh, okay. Well, let me get there.
You're looking at page 1?
Well,
Page 8.
I think, Jim, are you Jim's referring to Nancy's
Yeah.
edits of the
Right.
select board, which is
Right.
on page
Right.
8 of your black backup materials that says, as
Are we
described.
not talking about that now?
What I was talking
Am
about,
I out
Jim,
of
is
place on that one?
Jim,
page
you're-
1.
Okay.
It's
Jim,
page 1 of the charter
if you go to
that
this,
you sent us.
if you go to this draft of 12/31/20 in the Town of Camden Charter, on page
Right.
1 is the whole paragraph about charter review. And Jean's recommendation is, instead of what you were referring to on page 8 of the backup materials, where it just says 6 charter review, taking the language from page 1 of the draft of the whole charter and putting it right there.
Sorry, got it. Thank you.
So that would then accomplish what you want to accomplish, Jim.
Exactly. Thank you.
So I don't have a problem with that at all. It seems to make more sense than just having it sort of hangs out there funnily, strangely on page 1. So does that suit everybody?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're going to move that to the select board duties.
Yeah.
Nancy, did you get that?
Not quite.
And it's moved to where on the select board duties? What page is that on?
So if you look at Nancy's version,
Yeah, I got it.
on page 8, the
Page
very
8.
last thing under section 2.11 is enumeration of powers. And on the back page, page 8, it says number 6, charter review. So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
2 paragraphs would go there.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the way it should.
That way we don't have to worry about referring between 2 articles as well.
right.
Keeps it
Right.
cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay, great, guys. Well, that's that. That was. Can I skip to number 3 under review of options, Article 6, financial procedures? Because I think that's a little quicker than the Bill Kelly emails. 3
Okay,
and 4 might be a little quicker. As I kept thinking about how we're handling the budget committee, and we eliminated the nominating committee, partly because it's cumbersome and we have such a hard time putting a nominating committee together. We just said, people who are interested, go fill out an interest form. Well, I ran across a couple of charters that actually have what they call sort of a standing nominating committee. You don't have to appoint anybody. Whomever is the budget committee chairman, whomever is the budget committee vice chairman, and then the select board appoint a couple of people, and that's your standing nominating committee. And that will change as the chair and vice chair of the nominating committee change. This way, they would nominate a slate of people that we would then vote on. And I know I'm throwing this in at the last minute in a way, but I just wanted to put that out there for your consideration, whether if we left it just up to people who are interested filling out interest forms, I'm concerned we're going to be sitting there at town meeting doing the same thing we've done year after year after year, which is volunteering those poor souls that didn't show up to town meeting to be elected to the budget committee. Mark?
At last night's selectmen's meeting, they picked about, I think, 8 names that somebody had come up with. Allison had chased down several people, and a couple of us had chased down some people, and they came up with 8 names that they nominated and put on the committee last night from the selectmen's meeting.
That's because last year we didn't even have an in-person town meeting to, nominate people from the floor, and they needed to have that minimum number to make, you needed to have 21, I think it is. And they were down to
They have total now, but they nominated 8,
8.
or they appointed 8 people.
They appointed it. Yeah, because they can appoint people to vacancies. This might,
if we do what you're talking about, Deb, it doesn't change the narrative at all. If we have even a appointed budget nominating committee, just going out there and finding people that will do this, it's going to be the same thing all over again.
which is one of the reasons we reduced the number to 11.
Mhm.
Right.
So you don't think it'll help solve the issue? We'll still be in the same problem, have the same problem.
Yeah, unless you have a budget nominating committee that actually takes hold and does the work. I found in the past, being on the budget nominating committee, that a lot of them just simply don't do it. They see their name on the list, they go, okay, fine, and then they just don't follow through. I know I go down to Hannaford and stand in the aisles on Sunday afternoon and tap people on the shoulder. And it's to work.
Well, Jean and I ended up kind of we didn't go to Hannaford's, but all of a sudden we saw that there weren't any nominees on the slate, and became an ad hoc nominating committee. But don't you think if it's the budget chairman and vice chairman, as part of their duties to help create a slate that would help?
Well, someone at least is looking. We're not waiting for someone to apply. Someone is being proactive. And that might help, the fact that this proaction being taken.
Does it have to be all one way or the other? Can it be?
No,
No,
mixed?
it can be either or. It can be
I
both.
think it could be. I think somebody who's really interested could fill out an interest form. And if the nominating committee comes up with, 6 names and there's 6 people that apply, then we get to choose from 12 people. Wouldn't that be marvelous?
That would be different.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, Mark.
Comment. We go with something like you're proposing here that says the chairman and the vice chairman are part of, if not the whole committee. There is one devil's advocate situation here. The chairman of that committee a lot of times has been a person who's been on the committee for a couple of years, maybe their last term, they may be done with it. Okay, that's only a possibility. If they were to change the procedure and on the budget committee, ask them to elect a chairman for the next year at the last budget committee meeting, and then that person be the person on the budget nominating committee. So they have a vested interest in the next year.
Right.
Idea.
That's an interesting idea.
I think it's a good idea. Very good idea, Mike.
If the person that's the chairman is in their 3rd year and they're gone next year,
What do they
you know,
care?
they may not care.
I think it's a good idea for another reason too, Mark, is that if it is going to be a different chair the next year, they get a head start. They're not all of a sudden, the chairperson at the first meeting.
Yes.
So you're giving them a head start and they know it's coming up and what they have to do. And maybe they'll even bring some new ideas to the whole situation.
Okay, instead of, the only issue that I can see I love that idea. I think it solves the problem of somebody not being invested in getting people for the budget committee. There could be 6 people rotating off, and if at the end of the budget process, they elect a new chairman, that new chairman may be elected by 6 people that are rotating off. But on the other hand, there are people that have been through the process, so they know the importance of the role. So why don't I try to draft some language? Shall I do that?
Yeah.
Good. It
that
goes
the-
back to the policy of, on the budget committee, they elect the chairman at their first meeting.
So that
However,
policy
if
has to get changed.
changing the policy there
Mhm.
so that they elect a chairman for the upcoming year
Your last
from the
meeting.
people that are going to be on the budget committee the next year. So that, one, you have people that have been there at least a year. I'm certain there have been situations where a first-year member has stepped in and said, I know all there is to know. I want to be chairman. Being a little sarcastic with that.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
haven't seen that happen. Okay.
Okay,
Where would
Can't
that go in the charter? Is there a section for the budget committee here? I thought there was. I can't find
there
it.
isn't anything about budget committee rules that I know of, other than every committee elects its chair and vice chair. It doesn't say when the budget committee does. Our new charter says that they do that, at the very beginning of the formation of the committee. Nancy, I thought I heard you raise your hand.
Well, I thought Mark's idea was really good for having a chair, and then what if the new people who've assembled then vote the vice chair?
Sure.
And then the other people, if there was a mad rush for people who wanted to be on it, then so as not to offend, some of the people could be alternate members because there will always be people who don't come.
Yeah, we've accommodated for that because the 9 with the highest vote get regular seats, and then the next 2 are the alternates.
Right.
I'll try to draft some language,
Mhm.
and then maybe I should run it by, what do you think about running it by, Robin McIntosh was the chairperson. She's also been on a nominating committee.
Mhm.
She's been on the budget committee.
That
What if
would
I
be a
run
good
it by
choice.
her to start with and report back with you, report back to you guys?
Yeah, she'd be a good choice. Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Section 10, disbursements procedures. This is also, this is in finance. Where does it go best? When we wrote Article 6, which is the financial procedures, we talked about, how many people need to sign the warrant. And we came up with some very simple language that sits in Section 10 disbursement procedures in Article 6, which is finance. The select board shall regularly oversee and monitor all municipal appropriations and expenditures, sign warrants authorizing all disbursements of town funds, and establish a policy for financial procedures to follow generally accepted accounting practices for your municipalities. We adopted that in our meeting in December. Again, this is one of those things that relates directly to what the duties are of the select board. So the question is, should we put it in the select board duties as opposed to it being here?
Yes.
Or put it in,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay,
It's just like what we did a minute ago.
all right. Okay, so we're going to move that to select board enumeration of powers. Great.
What a nice
Should
change from what was there previously.
it be something like enumeration of powers and responsibilities?
Or duties. Yeah, we should probably maybe duties or responsibility sounds better than duties. Duties sounds like something your mother makes you do to get your allowance. Okay, that's great, guys. Okey doke. Back to Article 2, Select Board Authority to alter budget in case of emergency. If you remember, we've had an off and on conversation with Bill Kelly about what kind of powers the select board can have in the case, for instance, of COVID. And he was pretty adamant that even in case of emergency, the select board couldn't do certain things because the town voters are the legislative power. But if you remember, both Audra and the select board, when we met with them, talked about their frustration with the lack of flexibility in the charter. So in response to that, I've found that Wells had some accommodation giving the select board leeway in certain circumstances, and then found this section that you see in the emails I included that Poland, Maine gives them even more, a little bit more. So I went back to Bill and said, okay, if everybody votes on the charter and we give them the power to do this in the charter, isn't that okay? So he went through the effort of talking to Maine Municipal Association, which is the email that you have.
Mhm.
And so he's basically saying that Maine Municipal Association says there's nothing in the state statutes that says that couldn't be done. So my thought is this one of those things that we offer in our public discussions as an optional change to the charter? We don't have something like that in there now. And would it be good to talk to Audra and some of the select board? I actually sent Audra and Bob an email, because I think Bob's probably already seen this discussion from Bill Kelly, but to see if this, what part of what Poland Spring has in their charter would give them the flexibility they think that they're missing. So I put it out there. What's your reaction? Should we talk to Audra and Bob about it? Should Deb and Lowry talk to Bob and Audrey about it and see if that's something we offer as one of the options that we could add to the charter?
Deb, I have a question about the wording in item 2, emergency appropriations. On the 5th line at the end, but which must be, shouldn't that say repaid?
Are you on page 4 of the agenda papers?
Yes. Under the Poland, Maine,
Yep,
item 2,
emergency appropriations.
line 5,
Yeah,
which may be removed from time to time, which must be, shouldn't that word be repaid, not paid?
Probably, this came right from them.
What should be repaid later
Yeah,
than
that
the
would be
last?
repaid.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen, you had your hand up?
yeah. Well, one of the things I liked about the Poland is that they were very specific about giving the select board certain latitudes, public emergency affecting life, health, property, or public peace. That, I think, is a very wise idea to put, guidelines or brackets, or you can do this, meaning you can't do that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to have that kind of language in there.
I
Because
think,
we just open it up to an emergency. Who defines that?
Yeah, you're,
well, that's what Bill said in his piece. He said specific, being specific is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you say, Karen.
I like number 2 as well. I think that to me is gives them some leeway that they need, but I agree with you. It's not, and they're not opening up the checkbook. Number 1 seems to me to be opening up the checkbook a little bit, even if it says if there's extra money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark, you had your hand up.
Yeah, on number 2 there, is that giving them the authority to borrow this money from who knows where?
Right. It does.
Is it from the local bank, from the local loan shark on the corner? Like I said,
Well, he's not here anymore.
I'm being a little sarcastic on that, but it seems like they're opening it up for an awful lot of,
Yeah.
things.
But
that-
they have, Mark, would they have to abide by what they do in other circumstances, borrowing money? Would that not be implicit? In other words, in other parts of the charter, it says what we do when we borrow money. We have put it out to bid, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I think Mark's got we probably should say,
emergency situations, life, limb, and, the things at the beginning of that.
if we added something that referenced the regular borrowing procedures, but maybe a temporary note, maybe this warrants a conversation with Poland, Maine's town manager. Temporary note to me means that you go to Camden National Bank, because we already have the ability to do tax income, anticipation borrowing. You go to Camden National Bank, the person you're already doing business with, and you say, we need a 90-day note.
Simple.
So that looks like maybe it should be explored a little bit. Do you want me to dig into if Poland's charter says anymore, or?
I think it needs to be set some kind of a limit.
Yeah, and I think Bill commented about that too.
A temporary note of $5 million. No, that might be a little bit. Now, if who knows what happens, some emergency with the entire septic system, sewage treatment plant blowing up, and we need to spend something. But that's going to be so remote that there's going to be more than just a temporary fix needed.
We have the, I'm not going to come up with the right name. Jim and Karen, help me out. The surplus, we call it.
Unexpended fund balance.
Unexpended fund balance.
Undesignated fund balance.
Undesignated fund balance, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
More than that.
So would the limit
It's
be a
much more than
certain,
that.
would the limit be we might not be in the situation where we need to even include the stuff about doing temporary notes.
Right at this
Or do we,
I would say no, considering our fund balance has always been, what did you say, Jim? Is it something like million plus?
Almost $2 million.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe it's capped at a certain percentage of the unexpended fund balance?
It is approximately, I believe John French told me the other day, something like 7/12 of the annual budget. Or 3/12 of
Oh.
the annual budget.
Yeah, those are guidelines, I think, that come from the auditors, doesn't it, Mark?
It comes from part of it comes from the state.
State.
Okay.
And part of it
Mhm.
comes from just our own. The state says, I believe, 2/12 of the annual budget. And
Must
can
be in,
over 3/12 of the annual budget.
undesignated. So maybe what we suggest to, in a conversation with Bob and Lowry, if not to even include borrowing at all.
I would be more happy with that.
What do you think, Jim?
Well, how do you arrive at money if you don't borrow it? If you have an unexpended fund balance, you don't want to spend that money. How do you get the money if you don't borrow it?
Well, I guess what we're saying is go into the unexpended fund balance first. Because
As
we
long
have,
as you don't reduce the unexpended fund
Below.
balance below state mandated limit or mandated.
What is the,
It used to be a big number. I mean, I think the state required that each municipality had to set aside 14 or 16%. It was a big number, and very few communities can do it.
So which is probably why Poland has the temporary notes in there.
Could be lots of smaller towns, smaller than Camden, do. They don't have
So,
the tax base that we do.
so maybe this warrants a conversation with certainly Audra and Bob and Jody, our finance director.
Yeah, definitely.
question?
Yes, Mark,
This is talking about emergency appropriations.
right.
What constitutes a time frame on this? Are we talking, 2 days or 2 months? Because under normal circumstances, the select board meets every 2 weeks. So an emergency that comes up, they have to go through certain procedures. If they need to do something, they have to call a special town meeting. It's, within a
No,
month.
they're not calling a special town meeting. This is giving them the authority to spend money without a town meeting.
When they can't call a town meeting.
Yeah, in an emergency. So, but you got a point about the time frame. Maybe the time frame should be, it has to be repaid no later than the last day of the fiscal year following the year in which the emergency appropriation was made. That would be true whether it's a note or they're borrowing from the undesignated fund balance.
Yeah.
So that would be worthwhile keeping. Then it has to be paid back within the next year. So you'd budget for repaying
Right, fiscal year.
your your undesignated fund balance.
I have a question.
Sure, shoot.
To meet a public emergency affecting life, health, property, or the public peace, to me, that's sort of a non-reason. It's like a no reason. Can you just imagine if somebody wants to, property, for example, I mean, that could be defined in so many ways, countless ways, some emergency affecting property. Like what? Can you think of any examples, anybody?
Yeah, part of the downtown burning down.
One of the dams breaking. That would constitute an emergency because if Seabright Dam fails or is about to fail, it's going to take out Millville.
Okay, and the secret dam is property of Camden?
What's that?
Are we defining property of the town? Property belonging to town?
I think that's a good idea. To
I'm
define-
just wondering.
Karen, you just mentioned something, if the dam went, it would take out Millville. Would not be property of the town. That would be private property.
No, but fixing the dam before it.
Right, yes. I mean, you wouldn't have the ability to
is
do
what
that.
I'm talking about.
Right, yeah. I mean, if it goes, it goes,
I'm
it
not
goes.
talking about property, I'm talking about the personal well-being of the people of the town of Camden. Because if it,
Making sure we maintain the, and we find out the problem, it's an emergency, then we have to fix it.
yeah, right.
Right, yeah. Okay.
What if there's an emergency at the Snowball? Does that fall under this?
I would think, you mean like the lift poles collapsing or, I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't call that an
Lodge burning down.
emergency.
No,
A lodge burning down.
No, even that. I mean, that is not going to put anybody's life at risk. They're just going to
I
have.
thought that the snowball stuff and the lodge were somehow set up to be once removed or something from the town,
Well,
so that
it's-
we are responsible for everything.
It's an enterprise zone.
It's an enterprise, yeah, Jim's right, but it's still Camden property.
Right.
It's just how the accounting is done as a revenue, as you said, a revenue zone, a revenue account.
Supposed in revenue.
It's kind of like the
I guess you
harbor.
could think of something like, if something happens to the,
Well,
There must be.
Wait,
an
Jean,
that's okay. If something happens to the wastewater plant, that would be an example, I think, of something the town owned or the police department, or the public works department. That would be something we'd have to do in an emergency because it is part of town operations. I think what you're concerned about, Nancy, is that maybe somebody will use this as an excuse to obtain something they shouldn't obtain. Is that what you're worried about? Private property
Well,
being affected?
Not necessarily shouldn't obtain, but it's just when I see language that isn't specific enough, then I think about what it could be construed to.
yeah, I think you're right, Nancy.
What happens is when there's language that isn't definite, then it's an opportunity to stretch things, and that does happen. And the reason I asked about the Snowball is because that whole area, it seems to me, has higher liability than a lot of other areas, yet presumably the Snowball is insured enough, more than enough, so that the townspeople wouldn't bear liability on anything that happens up there.
I think
Right?
we're talking different kinds of emergencies.
this is a public emergency affecting life, health, property, the public peace. They may
Can-
make emergency appropriations.
Can we define property with that?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. I think property might need to be a little more carefully defined.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's very open. The way it is right now.
And what if it required a supermajority of the select board to approve an emergency appropriation? 4 instead of 3.
That's a good idea.
I mean, that means that, that's just the thought I had, that, upon the affirmative vote of a supermajority of the select, I mean, if we had some kind of an explosion and one of our select board members passed away as a result of this public emergency, it would be, or supermajority of those remaining in office, but.
What
So
is
this-
a supermajority?
Well, a supermajority would be, pardon, Jim? would be 4 out of
Four?
5.
Isn't majority? Pardon?
4 out of
We
5.
have 5 select board. I don't know what- Yeah, a super majority would be all 5.
Or no, 4 out of 5.
But 3 is a majority too. I don't, why is super so special?
Well, just
You're
one
getting
more,
another vote. What- You're,
making it tougher to pass.
Hmm.
Well, it's all stuff that could be part of another round of conversations. It's just a thought.
If on that emergency appropriations too, if we put in town-owned property, do you think that covers what we're talking about?
I think, but Nancy would still say it still covers the snow bowl, but we're talking about something fairly drastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them setting fire to the lodge up there life-altering for, you know,
That's a good thing.
the dam failure would be.
Right.
Or the fire station blowing up and we lost 3 engines, you know.
Yeah,
Are-
exactly. Yeah.
Mark?
Are any of the dams privately owned?
2 out of the 5.
Okay, so
Montgomery?
that could be an emergency situation that was private property. If one of the privately owned dams suddenly just disintegrated. I don't know what it would affect, but it might be some type of a major life and limb emergency.
Well, that's why if you put the wording in there that it's town-owned property, that eliminates the private dams. They can always go for their own loans from the.
Yeah, but it still might not help the town if under emergency situation, they may go, well, we don't have the funds and we're privately owned and the owner is in Nebraska and doesn't even know about it.
I think we should look into that because I think 1 or 2 of those dams aren't even in Camden.
I think whether in Lincolnville.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I
So that
don't
would,
know if we can do anything about that.
isn't Montgomery Dam still privately owned or we own that?
We own that. They turned that over to us
A million years ago. That's why we're spending money to fix it.
10, 15 years ago, right?
Well, why don't, let me see if I can get a conversation with Audra, Bob, and Jody to see what their reaction is to emergency appropriations. And get back to you guys with whatever feedback I get.
Mhm.
Is that a good
Good
next
idea.
step?
That would be fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good idea.
I mean, Bill certainly does raise the issue of specifics. And we're not particularly interested in borrowing money since we have such a large undesignated fund balance that we would
Right.
like to cap it, however, probably at some percentage of the undesignated fund balance, so they don't go crazy in an emergency situation. All right, thank you, guys. Okey doke. And I think now it's time to turn it over to Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
Oh, gee. Okay. So did everybody have a chance to read the new order of Article 2? And
Yeah.
does anyone have any questions or comments on the sequence? I had the original sequence a bit different, and in that I originally had the forfeiture of office and the prohibitions ahead of enumeration of powers and responsibilities. They were ahead of organizational meeting and select board chair and vice chair. And so 6 and 7, the way I had it, would follow what is now 8 and 9. And Deb thought it was better the way it is now, and I don't have any. It's fine either way. And everything else that had a sequence rearranged. She liked. There were some instances where there is very strange language, such as 2.07, number 3. And if anybody, does anyone know what it means, the phrase, and by the governor for purposes of military law means?
No.
Does that mean if you're chairman, you get to wear an admiral's hat and carry a flag? I mean, or if martial law is declared, the chairman of the,
That is so old fashioned.
No.
Exactly. That's just one of the things that in here. There were a few others that have been carried forward, I think, from the very first charter that had just been moved ahead each time the charter got revised, and
we fixed, I
these
think,
have got to be taken out.
we fixed most of them, but that one we left in, and I don't know.
I think I understand this.
Good.
If, and this is so far out there, if for some reason the
So it's like the way to do
Wait,
that
Nancy.
was.
Wait, Nancy. Karen's got it.
Okay.
if for some reason, I think this is old-fashioned language, but I think I understand what they're saying. If for some reason the United States gets attacked, we go under some sort of martial law. The governor has said that the town select board chair will be in charge of what goes on going forward. There has to be somebody in charge, or it's just crazy anarchy, everybody running wild. So you've got a leader, and that's what they're saying. The select board chair will be the leader in situations where the governor has to appoint somebody. And I think it all goes back to military stuff, just it's there, and I think it's fine,
I think you're right. I wonder if there's a way to say it so it doesn't sound so 1790.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I don't know. I kind of like it now that I understand it.
We could take out for purposes of military law. That probably should come out.
No, because that's the
No,
instance.
because that's what the reason is, Nancy, is for military law. If something happens,
Wait. One at a time. Nancy says military law should come out, and why?
I think we should contact the state and find out from the governor's office what is an appropriate thing to have in here.
Well, check Maine state statutes first.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
well, I would be in favor of leaving the words military law in there because it limits the governor appointing the chair of the select board to do anything to govern any kind of martial law that might be imposed. I think this is limiting by leaving martial law in there.
Right, as opposed to being the head of the government.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
May I ask Nancy a question on something in here that I've read? I'm just a little unclear about what goes on. On page 5, under section 2.02, composition and eligibility, under number 2, it says only qualified voters of the state of the town of Canada shall be eligible to hold another office of select board. I don't know what that means.
The word another.
Yeah.
Yeah, where'd that get in there?
I don't know how that got in there. Maybe it's Debbie typing.
Can we
Debbie
straighten?
Dodge?
Yeah. As opposed to my bad
It's
typing.
not another bad, it's just the.
So
The
we're gonna,
original one Yeah, the word the whole the office of,
Yeah, that's good catch, Jim. Good catch.
The select board.
Yes.
and it's really select board member, right?
No, shall be eligible to hold the office of select, oh, okay.
And then the next paragraph says, the next sentence says, the select board members shall reside. But hold the office of a select board member.
Okay,
Board member.
okay.
Hold office as a
To hold office as a
A
select board member.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
good revision.
Yeah, can we look at section 2.0, no, 2.02? The select board shall consist of 5 members elected by select secret ballot at the annual town meeting. Does this sound like to anyone that we're electing all 5 at the town meeting at one time?
Where are you looking? Clear.
I'm on
2.02, number 1, under
Right.
eligibility.
Oh, okay.
Because in the old one, we say select board members should be elected at each municipal election to fill those positions that have become vacant, which I think is more specific to the situation. This is a general situation, no, general comment. We elect 5 members elected secret ballot at the town meeting. So, I mean, we know the difference, but I wonder if someone reading it.
You're right. That's what that
would
sounds like.
think yeah.
yeah, I think that's better.
So take the old language back. In the old language under section 3, election in terms A.
So we say the select board shall consist of 5 members, period.
Period.
Or elected at each,
Yeah.
just say elected at each municipal election to fill those positions that have become vacant.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, keep going, guys. Excuse me, I have to remove a cat. Go, Mark.
Yeah, Deb, I would like to go back to section 2.03, excuse me, 07. The
Hold
number
on,
3
hold
into
on.
that, where
Hold
we
on.
talked about by the governor for purpose of military law,
Yeah.
okay? The next statement, starting after the question marks, but shall have no regular administrative duties. So what constitutes administrative duties?
Means
Yeah.
means acting as the town manager, because the town manager
Okay.
has all the administrative duties.
So does that need to be stated? Where,
No, I think it's trying to say that he's head of the town government, but he doesn't do any of the administrative stuff, which is in sort of in the prohibitions, which is section 2.12, interference with administration.
does that cover it there? Does it need to be said here?
Well, I think it's covered in prohibitions, Mark, on page 8, interference with administration.
Right, so why does it need to be here?
Oh,
I think it needs to be there because if there is a challenge, you don't want to have to go wandering around the charter to find that 3 little words there.
you could, if you felt you could add as in section 2.12 prohibitions too.
Then we
Yeah.
just, going back and forth from saying the same thing in 2 different places.
Yeah, which we don't want to do because 2.12 actually applies to all of the select board, not just the select board chair.
Right. That's why does that need to be there?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer that. Nancy, what do you think? Is it
But it does.
redundant?
I think 2.07, item 3 needs to be completely revisited and checked with state statute. I just have a feeling it's something that's been moved forward.
Okay, so we'll just look at the whole thing.
And
Yeah.
Mark?
The whole thing.
Mark?
another point on that, does that refer just to the, under governor's purposes of military law, that there's no administrative duties?
That's how I looked at it, Mark.
Is it
Those two
Jim?
go together.
That the two go together.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the only
That's
reason
how I read it.
it should be there. Is if it is referring directly to that provision.
Yeah, I added the question marks because I wanted everybody to wonder what the heck it was.
That's my thinking is,
There you go.
hopefully, but if he's appointed head admiral of the municipality by, act of Congress or whatever, does he now not have the administrative duties to administer it?
Okay,
Once again,
So-
that's off the wall. But
so we're gonna look at this one.
If we can't understand it, we can't defend it to the town later, and it doesn't really mean anything if no one can figure out what it means.
bingo.
Okay. All right, so we'll check main statute, and then you know what I can also do is have Bill Kelly weigh in.
Yeah.
That's why the town pays him the big bucks.
I would rather have no words, if they're words we can't defend, than
Right.
have something in there that says we don't know what it means.
Excuse me, does anybody hear a beeping?
Occasionally, yes.
What?
Occasionally, yes.
Oh, good. I thought maybe something was wrong with my computer. Okay. Okay.
What do you guys think about the format? It's a more modern format. It's used by a number of towns, particularly on the town charter and code system on E-code. This way, you always know that you're in Article 2 when you call it Section 2.01 as opposed to just Section 1. What do you think of the format in general?
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah,
It's
I do
easy to
too.
use, yeah.
Okay,
Nice and clean.
it is clean. It seems easier to navigate.
I think so.
And I think Nancy making the change in the font size of the section heads helps too. Okay, so we'll pursue continuing to do that. Any other content questions? Oh, 2.16, page 9, section 2.16, authentication and recording of ordinances.
Mhm.
If you can remember back to when we had our workshop in the Opera House with the select board, this was really the one thing that Audra said we don't do anymore this way. That the town clerk properly indexes the ordinances approved by the select board and the adopted by the voters, because Janice is the one who's been given that responsibility, but it's the charter says the town clerk, and main statutes specify, well, they say town clerk, doesn't say exclusively the town clerk. So I added that language. I don't know if you have colored copies or not.
Mhm.
But okay, the blue. And I have not heard back from Audra to see if that solves her problem with the fact that our charter isn't how we do it.
It sounds good to me. Simply because
So I'll just wait to hear, I'll send a follow-up to Audra.
Okay, and in section 2.14, we've got a yellow highlight on Article 2, Section 14. What's that about?
Oh, that's because if we adopt this system of numbering, then we'd have to change that reference to be the same kind of numbering.
Okay.
That was all, just so it would stand out.
Uh-huh.
One thing, section 2.16 again, it talks about in a properly indexed book kept for that purpose. I thought that was a pretty amusing phrase. But we should just double check on where it is that the new ordinances and resolutions are entered.
You mean, is there a properly indexed book kept for that purpose?
Exactly.
That's a
Yeah.
Janice question. I'll ask Janice.
Let's ask her. And another thing under 2.11, enumeration of powers and responsibilities. I wanted to mention the new order there. You'll see there items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then A, B, and C under 1.
Mhm.
And because 3 powers called out for the town manager, which were sort of all over the place under enumeration of powers, I put them up under town manager using 1, 2, and 3 with I. Do you see that?
Yeah, under A, town manager, we've got
Okay.
annual appointments, then A, town manager,
Mhm.
I, double I, triple I.
Triple I. And that's a format that will be worth carrying through in other articles when it's needed.
Yeah, that's the same outline format.
So it will be, the numbers, and then the subs will be the letters, and then the next sub will be I, double I, triple I, etc.
Mhm.
Then also in this section, you'll see under 1A, triple I, the word overseer's agent. And it's also in 1C, that term. Now Deborah and I found it 2 different ways before.
Agent of the
One-
overseers or overseers.
Agent and overseers, and then there was another term that was used. Do you guys know exactly what's the right term, modern term?
Because it was agent of
Might be a legal
overseers.
term. You might want to check if that's a legal term or not, Deb.
Okay, that's a BK question.
It is
Yeah.
one of our,
What they call the overseers of the poor yet.
Or-
right.
Which we kind of
We still call
eliminated.
it, I think they still call the select board overseers of the poor, I think.
Mhm.
Don't you remember, Karen? Is
I
that?
think so too, yes.
That's
one of the
what
things
we
you're
were called
responsible
when we were on it.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think it's changed.
Modernized in that it's not wanted, they don't want to use that term anymore, terminology, overseers of the poor. So we need to find out what is the proper,
Okay, so that's a BK question.
yeah.
Just-
And check the main statute section. Okay.
Deb, I have a question. And it is in here several places where we reference state statutes. 30-A, AM, those, it's referenced in here
Yep.
several places.
Yes.
State law reference.
Yes.
That was one of the things that got us in trouble with before, where state statutes had been changed and our things didn't match up with state statutes.
Right.
Is there any way that we could, or should we, put in something to effectively say that if the state statute changes, we will follow it to the best of our ability?
No, but you fixed that. You came up with that a long time ago.
Okay,
And
remember talking about, where
No,
did we
you
put
came
that
up
in?
you came up with that, and I'm trying to remember where it was. And it is general provisions in the full charter dated 12/31/20. under section 6, separability. And Mark, this was your language. Should any of the provisions of this charter that are governed by the remain revived statutes become invalid due to a change in state law after the adoption of this charter, the new statute shall take precedence over such provision until the charter can be amended in accordance with state law.
Okay,
You
I
came
thought- I
up
knew
with
we
that
talked about
language,
it.
and Bill Kelly blessed it.
What page is on? What page is
That's on page 25. Separability B.
Talking about it, and I thought we discussed it, but I just.
Yep, we
it's been so
discussed
long, I
it.
forgot about it, so.
We discussed it and Bill Kelly approved your language. So we're good to go.
Okay, super. I did something right, maybe.
Hey.
Absolutely.
What line was it on page 25?
It's page 25, 6B.
Last paragraph down on page 25, Mark.
Okay, yes. Thank you, very good.
See, you hadn't forgotten about it.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I may be the dead horse. So.
Well, aren't you proud of the fact your brain is still operating?
Yeah. Parts is parts. Where are we now?
Okay.
On page 6, and this is just an editing thing, on page 6, section 2.09, C, falls to attend 3 regular meetings at any 6. It should be written out, not the word, not the number in this case,
Okay,
to follow style.
got it. If you find any other edits like that, send them to me by email. I don't think we need to,
Will
know.
do. No,
Right.
okay.
So far as state law references, when Deb and I went through this, Deb checked to be sure that the reference cited actually applied to that section, and did find out in a couple of cases that the state law citation was referencing something that it didn't apply to. So now they've been moved so that they
are appropriate.
in the right area. And the way we did it, for example, if you refer to 2.11, Enumeration of Powers on page 7,
Yep,
then there's a state law reference there out at the left margin
Mhm.
under 1.
Yeah.
So that indicates that those statutes apply to the town manager, which is right up above.
yeah, if it were indented, that means it would only apply to whatever paragraph it was directly beneath and indented similarly.
It would apply to other officers and boards, for example, but it applies to annual appointments.
Because it's out on that same margin.
Right.
If
Under
you
town
start,
under town manager A in that same 1, line 3, 3 members provided however that any contract entered into by, do you need the word however there?
where are you?
Page 7 of what we're working on today, section
I
2,
think it eliminates,
Enumeration of
however,
Powers, town manager, 1, little 1, whatever.
Yep,
Members provided, line 3, provided that any contract entered into. Do we need the word however?
Oh, yeah.
no.
no.
Okay.
So my thought is that with Nancy's agreement, I think, Nancy, you're going to take a look at Article 1 to sort of reorganize it in the same kind of format.
Right.
Article 3 is almost there. I can, But I've got a couple of follow-ups to do and some things to check, which I can do and then get back to you before our next meeting on. Maybe Nancy, if you can do Article 1, I'll take a look at doing Article 3 unless somebody else wants to tackle Article 3, or do you want us, Nancy and Deb, to keep tackling the reformatting?
I think the same people should tackle the reformatting since they
Okay.
keep the style going.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That was a very nice try, Deb.
you noticed. Okay. All righty. So I'm going to draft some language on that budget committee thing and run it by Robin. We're going to I'm going to try and talk to Audra, Bob, and Jody about the emergency appropriations to get their feedback on that, and we can talk about whatever that is at our next meeting. We'll make the minor edits on this, and I'll, make the moves that we talked about as far as select board duties, going from one article all into select board duties. Is there?
And then talk to Janice about the properly indexed book for the
Yeah.
ordinances.
Yeah, I wrote that
Over-
down. I wrote that down in that section.
Okay.
All right. So Nancy, when do you think you could have Article 1 finished? Would you have it in time for a meeting later in March? Or do we want to have one in 2 weeks? Or shall I just feed you guys updates as I get them, and then we talk about them in a meeting later in March?
I like the latter.
I do too.
Send you feedback as
Right.
we get it.
Yeah.
That's going
Okay.
very well
Send you feedback as we get it, and
so
then pick a
far.
meeting.
That's been great.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we can discuss it in our meeting. Okay, next meeting date, 24th of March.
Mhm.
I will be out of town, but I will have a iPad with me so I can Zoom with you guys. And I can obviously email Janice an agenda and she can get everything out to you. So does the 24th sound good?
Works for me.
Yes.
Yep.
Works for me.
Yep.
Be aware the select board has a very full schedule the next month, trying to get stuff ready for town meeting and the follow-ups on the tannery project and a whole bunch of other things, so.
Okay. Plus they've got budget, yeah, they do. They've got the whole budget thing. Well, I'll do my best to get as much feedback as possible.
How much of an extension did we get?
Okay.
I think we actually got it till March of next year with a hope that we would do it in November.
Okay.
Mhm.
But with the outside is next March, but we hope to be able to do it this November,
All right.
which I really want us to push for. I think we need to wrap it up,
I think
get
we're
our
close.
public information meetings this summer and put it to bed.
Yeah.
Very good idea.
Thank you all. Is there anything else?
Thanks, Deb.
Can't think of a thing.
Thank you,
Thank
Deb.
you all.
Thanks.
And Mark, if you see John in the next day or two, tell him we missed him.
He
Bob.
told me he was gonna be here the other day when I saw him. Thank you, Nancy, for putting all this together and
Great job.
formatting it. That
Yes, thank
works
you,
out
Nancy.
well.
It looks really good.
All right. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to say good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night, guys.
Bye.
Sleep tight.
And what is it? Don't let the bed bugs bite.
That's the other part of that, yes.
Okay, I'm going to leave and Janice will have to turn off the YouTube for us.
Okay.
Take care, Mark.
Try. Bye.
Bye-bye.